1, 2, 3. Cello testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sound check. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, microphone is picking up my mobile phone, which I'm using to monitor. Okay, microphone is picking up my mobile phone, which I'm using to monitor. Okay, microphone is picking up my mobile phone, which I'm using to monitor. Okay, as usual, we'll wait for. Okay, as usual, we wait for the students to turn up. Then we'll start the class with a series of lectures, then some demonstrations. So I should be broadcasting on both streams right now, both on Collaborate and also on YouTube live stream. So I'll just wait for maybe another 15 minutes, then we'll start the class. Okay, for those who have just joined, right now I'm just downloading some images to show you some exercises that we'll be doing. Please let me know if the wind noise is a bit distracting. So if it is, I will bring down the sound recording sensitivity. Okay, so just wait a few more minutes. Okay, as usual, if you have any questions, if you have any problems that you've encountered while doing your assignments, feel free to ask them. You may post your questions in the message column in the Collaborate so I can respond to them. Now, if you post comments in the YouTube live stream, I will not be able to respond. Okay, so if you have any questions, it's best for you to type it out on the chat box over here in Collaborate, and I should be able to respond to you quite promptly. Check, check, check. Oh, okay. Check testing. 1, 2, 3. All right, if you are not aware, I've placed the links to the previous class live stream. Okay, and you should be able to watch the streams again. Okay, if you want to go through the what the content that I went over in the last class. Okay, so I'm expecting more students to give me more questions in the coming weeks. Okay, I'll wait for another 6 more minutes. We'll start exactly at 7:15. Okay, again, just another sound check. When I'm not speaking, is my mic picking up a lot of wind noise? If it is picking up a lot of wind noise, please do let me know. I'll try to adjust my fans a little bit here. Okay, I'm monitoring the YouTube live stream on my mobile phone, and it appears the stream has about 2 or 3 seconds of lag time, so it's still not too bad. The quality is looking very good. So if you're watching this class through the YouTube live stream, it should be a much better experience than through Collaborate. However, you can run Collaborate together with the live stream. So if you have any questions you want to type or you want to post out, you can do that. Like I mentioned earlier, I will not be able to respond to the YouTube live stream chat because that will be on my I'm monitoring it on my mobile phone. Okay, in another few more minutes, I'll start the lecture soon. Okay, it's 7:15 now, so I'll start the class tonight. So tonight we're talking about lighting and rendering in Blender. So here are the notes. So here's the introduction. Now, so far, whatever you guys are doing, you are modeling or creating objects in a 3D environment, the lighting that is generated is actually not real lighting, it's just a preview lighting, or whatever you see is just rendered through the viewport of Blender. And sometimes the lighting that was given to you is actually sort of a preview lighting that is generated within Blender. So a proper setup of this lighting will result in a much better looking graphics, right, when you are rendering. So what is the term render? So the thing is, when you are working on your 3D graphics, let me just switch over to Blender. Okay, those of you who are on Collaborate, you will not be able to see this, so please use the YouTube live stream. So if I am in shaded mode, or rather in the solid mode, so this type of light that you are seeing right now is not actually real lights. Okay, the light you see here, this spotlight here, is actually not generating light to create the light on the scene. The light you actually see is actually a preview light that is generated within Blender's preferences. If you go to the preferences setting, you can actually set the 3 different lights or the angle which you want the light to be shown on the object. So you can see there's one that's at the bottom, then there's one that's on the right, and then there's one that's on the top left. So this one will give you a constant look of what the object will look like in shaded mode. But however, if you want to see the object rendered with the proper lights, with the lights that you created, you will have to create the lights, or when you start with a new Blender scene, let me just save this quickly. Save today, so maybe just close this, and then I'm just going to call this light. Go to the correct folder. Okay, and then save this, and I'm just going to reset the scene and show you the default scene. Now in Blender, the default scene will already contain this point light. Now Blender lights are known as lamps. So when you move this light around, it doesn't really affect how the cube is being illuminated. However, if you were to change it to material, and then you select the light and you move the light around, and now you can actually change how the object is being lit. Now remember, we are still staring at the object through this viewport here. So this viewport, the way the object looks, is actually generated in real time by your computer graphics hardware. Okay, so whether you're using a Intel graphics or you're using a NVIDIA dedicated graphics card, the graphics card is doing most of the heavy duty work to render this cube, this object to you in real time, including this lighting effect, right? So just like in the video games where you are playing with live video game graphics, real-time video game graphics, all the lighting effects are all generated in real time. So this is kind of what the viewport is doing right now. Okay, but however, if you want to show the object in its close to the actual reality of what it looks like, of how the light lights this object, you have to do a process called rendering, and the button is available here, render. Okay, so when you click on render, or the shortcut button is F12. Okay, you can see what the camera sees here. Okay, so that is rendering. So there is a distinct difference between rendering and the live viewport. Although you can see it actually doesn't look too different. So this is what the viewport is seeing, and this is what the rendered looks like. All right. But this is the non-textured and non-lit method. When you click on this viewport shading, it gives you all these different shading options. Okay, let's just jump back to the lecture notes again. So lighting is actually very important. Now, in order to make sure our objects look realistic in this computer graphics environment, we first start by observing how light behaves in the real world. So you just have to go out and look at how light behaves when it hits the surfaces. And if you look at this slide here and you compare this box here, which is on my desk and it's being lit on a desktop lamp, and you compare the box that's being lit in this 3D environment, obviously in Blender, it's being lit by a single light source. And you can see the shadow that is being cast on the surface by this cube. And you compare it with this shadow that's being lit or being cast by my desktop lamp. You will see there's a significant difference. Okay, I don't know whether you guys can respond, but can anyone tell me, just by looking at this slide alone, what is the difference between these two images? Okay, I know that this, let me see whether I can zoom in a little bit. I can't zoom in. So if you take a look at this cube here, compared to this box here with the shadow here. Okay, so can anyone tell me what is the main difference between these two shadows? Anyone? You can give me a single word answer, that'll be fine. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention. Shadow harshness. Okay, so yes, you can say that the shadow of the box is way harder. Yes, softer. Okay, on the intensity of shadow, we are very good. Okay, so these are the areas, right, which actually brings out the differences between these two shadows here. Now, if you look, let me just quickly jump over to Blender, and I will just switch over to the scene, the little scene which I created just now. And I'm going to switch over to the material render. And just by looking at this alone, and in fact, I can just do a render. And if you can see the image on the YouTube live stream, you'll notice that the shadow is impossibly black. All right, it's impossibly dark. Now take note, we are using the Blender render engine right now, the default rendering engine. So when you only have a single light source and when it hits on the surface, it will illuminate the surface. However, when the shadow is being cast and is dropped onto the surface, it generates a super unnatural shadow. This shadow is overly harsh, okay, like what you guys say. And if you compare it with the actual shadow in the real world, you'll notice that the real world shadow is much softer along the edges. And also, there is no such thing as a all black shadow. Completely black shadow doesn't exist in real life. There are always light that is bouncing off from the environment, and also possibly even from the back of this box. The light will be bouncing back and forth several times until the energy dissipates, and to give this sort of a grayish effect. So in the early days of computer graphics, okay, I'm just going to proceed on with the different slides. In the early days of computer graphics, right, it requires a lot of computing power, a lot of processing power, right, just to create this effect. So that's why the early computer graphics, they just couldn't render the shadows properly. It was only until very lately. Okay, so this is some theory about lights and all that. You guys can go and read that by yourself. So like I said, I mentioned in the early days of computer graphics, generating shadows or even generating computer graphics with a high number of polygons, meaning a lot of faces, requires a lot of processing power. So in the end, they just forget about shadows altogether. Of course, this screenshot is from a music video from Dire Straits. So in the early days of computer graphics, I would say this is would be late 80s, late 80s graphics, all right, rather mid 80s, 1985. So the computer processor used to render this can't even do the proper shadows. So if you look at this, there is not much shadows going on in this still. So generating all these shadows is actually very processor intensive. But computer graphics hardware has come a long way. Right now, you can see real-time shadows being generated. Those of you who play computer games, first-person shooters, or games with actually animated characters, you can actually see all these shadows are being generated in real time, and the quality is actually looking very, very good. In movies, in rendered animated films, all these are now rendered with fairly easily. Okay, so in order to set up proper lighting, you need to have it actually. When we talk about shooting films and animation or movies or television, it's all interrelated. Like filmmaking and TV production, photography, all these things are related. So all these terms also are being brought into the world of computer graphics. So for example, when you set up lighting in the 3D environment, we will use the exact same terminology. Okay, so like I mentioned quickly earlier, in Blender, they do not call lights lights. I guess they just want to differentiate themselves from other 3D software packages, because in 3D Studio Max, in Softimage, in Maya, they call their lights lights. But I guess Blender wanted to be special, so they call their lights lamps. Okay, so that is the difference that they want to do to stand out. So if you look at this close up here, there are many different types of light sources in Blender. You have a point light, you have sunlight, you have spot, then you have a hemi, and then you have an area light. So each of them have different properties, and we shall go through them right now very quickly. So I'll just jump over to Blender, and let's take a look. So right now I have set up a spotlight, okay? And let me just delete away this light. Press X to delete. So once you delete this light, and if you are in the material mode, there will be no lights to light everything up, so everything turns black. So if you want to see something again, you can go to solid mode. So again, in this solid mode, the light is actually not real. It's actually generated by the Blender internal to give you a preview of what the object will look like when it's being lit. So we're going to create a new light. So we're just going to add lamp, and then we're just going to create a point light. So I'm going to move the point light to the top. And then we're going to see how this light affects this object here. So I'm going to turn on material. And then you can see a point light is basically a light that emits light from 365 degrees. Okay. And the interface is very simple. You have this color swatch here, which you can click, and then you can change the color. All right. And you have the energy, which you can increase to change the intensity of the light. Okay, so you can also adjust the distance which the light energy falls off. Like for example, if you shorten the distance, the light energy will become less, and the radius of the energy will just dissipate. Okay, so I'll just change it back to default 25. Okay, and also you can change the shape of the light, so into a sphere. And the shadow, you can decide whether you want to turn on shadow, erase shadow, or no shadow. Okay. And when you enable ray shadow, you enable all these other properties, which determines how the shadow will look. Okay, I'm going to switch over to rendered view. So this is actually, when I change the view right now, the computer is actually rendering the view in real time every time I change my view. So if I want my shadow to be softer, I have to increase my softness, and I have to increase the samples. Okay, however, the higher samples you increase, it's going to have a huge impact on your rendering time. Right now, the softness is way too big. I'll bring it down to maybe 3. Right now, even rendering in this view at a high sample level, okay, it's going to take some time. But you can see the result, the shadow is looking much, much better. And if you want to fake the grayishness of the shadow, you do not want this super black, you can click on this shadow color and then just bring it down to more to a grayish color. Right, that's one way you can fake it. But even then, you can see the backside of this egg shape that I created has become super dark. So this is actually very unnatural and it shouldn't look like that, okay, in the real world. So one light by itself, you can't really illuminate an object properly. So in order to set up lighting, right, you definitely need more lights. And in fact, more than one type of light. So let's move on to the, let me just turn off the shadow now. Let's move on to the next type of light. Now, depending on your needs, you can change the light to behave in a very different way. For example, right now I'm using a point light, right, in the shader mode. We can change it into a sunlight. So a sunlight will behave like just its name suggests, just like a sun. So you can even have presets where you can enable the sky and also turn on whether you want it to look like a desert or you want to look whether you want it to look like a light from a mountain source. Okay, so you can actually turn on this, and it actually has some industry settings. These are for like architectural or interior lighting specialists who want to make sure that the light energy matches the real world examples. Okay, so this will be very, very good for people who are into rendering architectural buildings or interior lightings. Okay, so that is sunlight for you. Okay, you can go and explore all these, and same thing, you can turn on shadows or disable the shadows. The next one is spotlight. Okay, so this spotlight is one of my favorite lights. Okay, you can actually use this like a cone. So right now you can see the cone of the spotlight. If I can move this up, and if you want to see the effect of the spotlight, or if you want to just have a preview of how the light acts on the 3D objects, you have to enable the material shade options. Okay, so I'm just going to bump up the brightness a little bit. And as you move the light along, okay, you can see that it even casts a shadow, even a preview shadow on this. So as far as I know, the spotlight is the only light that can do this effect. If I use the other lights and if I turn on the shadow, it wouldn't even generate the shadow on this preview viewport. Okay, so this is a very good light source, okay, to actually preview the shadows. Okay, so I guess maybe because it has more shadow settings that is available. And if you take a look at the light itself, you can actually adjust things like the cone size. All right, and let me just see whether I can find it. Okay, you can adjust the cone size by adjusting the angle here. So just click on the value, left mouse click and drag left and right. Okay, so you can even create a halo effect so that when you render it, you will have this smoking light effect. So if I were to render this now, you can see it has this smoky environment effect. And if you don't want the intensity of the halo to be too strong, you can actually bring it down. So let's go back to 3D view and switch to rendered view. And I can just reduce the intensity until to the smoky effect that I like. Okay. So in fact, it seems that the spotlight shadows is actually kind of efficient. I can revolve around the view, and yet it still renders fairly quickly. Of course, it helps that you have a fast computer to do this. So you can see the spotlight has many different settings. You can play with all this to get the effect that you want. Okay, I can change it to different colored lights and so on. Okay, so the next light. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the wireframe and then shaded mode again, pressing Z a couple of times. Next light is the hemi light. Okay, so this hemi light is a bit interesting. You notice that the settings are very simple and it doesn't have any settings for shadows at all. So this type of light, right, will be very useful if you want to like brighten up dark areas. For example, if your object, for example, let me just switch to the material mode. Okay, right now this is way too intense. I'm going to bring it down. Notice that it doesn't cast any light. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D, duplicate this light, and I'm going to just press R to rotate. and press G, so I can light the back of this egg here. And then this light, I'm going to change it to a spotlight again. And I'm going to reduce the intensity of this light. Okay, until I get rid of the harshness of the blacks. Okay, and then I can increase the intensity of my spotlight. And now, when I look at this egg here, the back end here doesn't appear, the dark area here doesn't appear too dark. So you can use the Hemi light, sort of like a fill light, right, to soften out the harshness of the shadows. All right. And then finally, we have this area light. Area light also pretty much does the same thing. But the good thing about area light is that you can actually adjust the width of the light. For example, right now, the shape of the light is a square. And I can enable rectangle, and I can make it become a long strip of light. So if you want, you can actually use this to simulate things like fluorescent lighting, okay, in a office environment. So you can create multiple copies of this. So it will generate a stream of light that come down in a strip, okay. Now, a word of caution, okay, from my experience is that if you use a lot of lights in your scene, okay, it will actually require much more computing resources to compute out the scene. So if your scene has tons and tons of lights, all right, and then you make sure that you adjust them accordingly. But however, once your lights get to the range of like 50 or even 100 lights to light up a scene, then you notice that the rendering will become slower and slower and slower. So how you use the lights, right, is you have to use it very, very carefully. You have to position the lights to the points where you really need it, okay? Okay, so that is all the different lights for you. And I'll leave it to you guys to just play and experiment with it. If you want to know more, please consult your textbook. Okay, it'll give you much more explanations about what all these lights do. But generally speaking, I will just, most of the time, I'll just use the point, the spot, or sometimes even use the Hemi. Area only when I need to have a very specific soft lighting source, or I need to have an area which gives out a very soft light source. Okay, so all these lights have its uses. I'm going to switch back to Hemi, okay, and then I'm going to jump back to the notes again, and we'll see where we are. Okay, so now we are going to talk about a term that is very familiar with photographers, filmmakers, okay, and a TV studio lighting. Okay, that is 3-point lighting. Okay, in order to demonstrate 3-point lighting, I need to get a photo. Let me just try to find a picture. Okay, so we are in the Google right now. So let me jump to the browser again, and I'm just going to search for studio lighting and maybe newsreader. Okay, I think I have to search for this lady here. Okay, there should be a lot of images of her reading the news. Okay, there's one here. Okay, let me just try to find one that has a good example of lighting. Maybe this one. Okay, the reason why I chose this image is very simple. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Because next time when you guys are watching the news again, or basically watching a TV program where the host is being lit in the studio environment, you'll be able to see that the subject here is being lit with the standard 3-point lighting technique. Okay, So which is what we call the 3-point lighting. Okay, so this is commonly used in movies, in TV productions, in live events. Okay, so in this TV studio environment, we can see the 3-point lighting at work here. Now, if you look carefully at her shoulder, you can see that her shoulder is being lit. Okay, so that the outline of her frame actually stands out. Okay, and then also the backlight also lights out a silhouette right behind the head. Okay, and then if you study the shadow here, you notice that there's actually two shadows. Okay, one main light that is shining right at her face, and you can even see the light that is lighting on her eyes. Okay, sorry, I need to zoom in a little bit more. So if you look at the eyes, you can see the highlights on the eyes. So that is the source of light that is coming from directly in front of her, which we call the key light. Okay, the key light is actually lighting her face right now, and it's generating this very harsh shadow. And there's another light coming in from her, I would say from her left. Okay, the key light is coming from right, and then another light coming from her, her left, yes. And then to soften out the harsh shadows at the bottom. So that one you can call it the side or fill light. Okay, the side of fill light. So altogether, there are three different lights, right? Three different light sources that are lighting this news reader here. So next time when you're watching the news again, you watch out for these three lighting sources. So the 3-point lighting is like the most basic form of lighting, right, that you can use to light the subject. And we're going to bring in a object, and then I'm going to set up the basic 3-point lighting for you guys right now. Now, remember right now, I'm still using the Blender renderer, but since the default Blender renderer has been around for so long, okay, so I'll just concentrate on talking about this first. Then maybe the second half of this class, I will talk about the cycles renderer. Okay, so you can see, let me just get a much better subject. I'm going to use the Singer Kabi. So I'm going to use this guy as the lighting subject. All right, so just reset my camera position. Okay, I think I need to get rid of this camera and create a new one. Okay, so now I need a floor. So Shift A, then create a plane. And just put this down here so that the plane can catch the shadows. Okay. So do I have any light source? Yes, I do. I'm just going to get rid. Oh, no, I will just use this point light as my first light source. Okay, so I'm going to convert this into a spotlight. And then I'm going to turn on my shaded mode so I can preview this. Okay, because this is my in cycles render, I'm going to switch it to the Blender renderer. Okay, because this object was created originally in the Blender material, or rather the cycles materials. I'm going to redo the materials temporarily. Just get rid of this. Okay. Okay, so now there's some color on him. You can see the light intensity here is way too weak. So I'm just going to really kick up the light energy. I'm going to do the same for this tail here. Okay, so now I'm going to select this light, and I guess there's not enough memory, so I'm not seeing any shadows that's being rendered right now. So the only way that I can see the shadows is to press F12. You can see the shadows, the quality is not that good. All right, so I'm going to enable ray shadow, and then I'm going to press F12 again. And now you can see the shadow quality is much better. However, you can see the edges of this image, right, is very, very harsh. So if I want to make the shadow softer, I have to increase the soft size, okay, maybe to 1, and then the samples maybe to 15. And then I'm going to press F12 again to render. Okay, so I'm getting a much better result. Okay, I'm going to reposition my camera a little bit. So press 0, number pad 0 to go to my camera. And I'm just going to select the camera by right mouse clicking the border and just press G. Or I can just position it here, then press Ctrl Alt and number pad 0 to reset the camera position. Then while the camera is still being selected, press G followed by Z, so I can pull the camera up. Okay, so this is what the camera, or rather what Blender will be rendering. So if I press F12 again to see my rendering. Okay, so this is the potential problem that you will face if you're just using one light source. So this will be considered the key light or the front light. The light that's actually lighting the front, okay, showing the main key features of your subject. Okay, so that's one light. So now we're going to create a second light. We can just duplicate this spotlight. And we are now going to illuminate his back. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate this light. And then I'm going to rotate. Just go to the top view. Press R to rotate. Press G and then bring it until it is right at the back. I'm going to go back to the camera view and then see how the lighting is affecting the surface. And now you can see the tip of the ears, okay, the tuft on his top, and then the shoulders, okay, the back is actually showing up much better. So I'm going to press F12 and see what it looks like. You might sense the rendering has slowed down slightly. Okay, that's because now we have two light sources and you need to calculate the two lights that's rendering or lighting the subject. Now, if you take a look closely, the back now looks a little bit better. However, the front here, especially under the chin, okay, if you remember the newscaster photo that I showed you, the chin, right, is the area, or under the chin will always, the shadows that is generated under the chin will become very, very dark. So we need to actually put in another light to soften out the harshness of this darkness. Because remember, in computer lighting, especially in this Blender or any 3D graphics lighting, if you're not using a specific renderer that can generate real-world lighting effects, when the light hits the surface, it just stays there. Okay, it doesn't reflect off, it doesn't bounce back and forth to create a realistic lighting effect. Okay, so we can actually simulate that later, but right now let us put another light source. So now we're going to use another light to even out this area here. So we're going to switch back to the 3D view, and I'm going to select this light again. Okay, maybe the back light, I'm going to reduce the energy a bit. Okay, and then the front light, I'm really going to increase the energy. Okay, it seems like 10 is the maximum value. And the distance, maybe I can just push it further. Now select this backlight, then go to the top view, Shift D, duplicate, and then I'm going to press R to rotate it until it is pointing at the angle so that I can point at the side. So I just press G to move the light to this angle. And then I'm going to move the light down. And then I'm just going to rotate this light until it is, I want it to be fairly low. Now, of course, in the studios, right, the lights are usually hung high up in the ceiling. So sometimes it's very hard for them to actually get the light down low. But there are some lighting studios, right, they have this accordion structure, which they can actually lower the light fairly low so that they can add a fill light. Or sometimes a lighting specialist will take a light stand and then they'll put a light close to the side of the subject, and then they will produce the light to light up the darker areas. Okay, so sometimes you can see shadows being generated. So the shadows in the preview viewport is not consistent. So sometimes you see it appear, sometimes it doesn't. So the only way to see whether the shadows are appearing correctly is to press F12 to render. And the speed has slowed down just a fraction more. Okay, so now you can see the subject is being rendered, and you can see the harshness of the black shadow is suppressed. Okay, you can still see a bit of dark shadow here, so you might need to reposition the light a little bit. Okay, it's just to cover this area. Now, I can change the side light, okay, into a hemi light, because I do not want to generate so much, what do you call that? I don't want it to generate shadows. I just want it as a fill light to fill up all these dark areas. So remember, in basic 3-point lighting, there is the key light, which is this front light. Then there is the back light, or we sometimes call it the rim light, or the silhouette light, the rim light. So that will make the light stand out. And then finally, we have the fill light that is to even out or to cancel out the harshness of the shadows. So right now with these adjustments, I'm going to press F12 and see what is the result. Okay, I think it's starting to look a little bit better. Now, another thing about lighting in computer graphics is that the kind of colors that computer graphics generate, right, the light it generates, sometimes unnatural. For example, it is extremely rare that you will find that light is being generated at pure 100% white light. Okay, so in order to have this kind of high color temperature, right, either the light has to be super hot or super intense. Okay, but in real life, right, you can't really get it to super 100% white. Okay, so one way to make it look a little bit more realistic is to actually bring down the whiteness. Okay, usually in real world, the lights are either a little bit yellowish or a little bit more in the warm side. So now you can see it's slightly yellowish. And in order to make your lighting stand out a little bit more, sometimes you can use a bit of slight color adjustments. For example, this hemi light, maybe I'll just want to put a little bit on the blue side. And then maybe the backlight, I'll just want to put a little bit more on the green side. So we have all the, well, almost all the colors covered except for red. Okay. And then if I render this now, okay, then you have a slightly much more natural effect. Okay, so that's how you set up your 3-point lighting and within the Blender renderer itself. Okay, so let's move on to the next step or next part of the notes. Now in Blender, there is, besides using lamps to generate light or produce light, you can also use another type of lighting called global lighting. Okay, so global lighting, as the name suggests, means that you can actually use the environment to produce the light. So if you enable the global lighting, the environment actually produces the light to light up the scene. Now, when do we actually use this? This effect is particularly good for when you want to create a very soft shadow effect. For example, if you look at this teapot here, it's being lit by this environment. So it has this soft overcast look. Like, for example, the sky has an overcast look, then light is coming from all directions. So it's not casting a very obvious shadow. It's not casting a very sharp looking shadow. So in order to set up this effect, it's actually very simple in Blender itself. So for example, right now, this one is set up as 3-point lighting. I'm going to go to 3D view. I'm going to get rid of all these lights. So first I'm going to select all the lights, holding down the shift, select all the lights, and I'm going to put them in a different layer. So put them in a different layer, you just press M, and then I'm just going to put them, click them on this layer here. So now there's no lights at all lighting this scene now. So I need to switch back to my solid view so I know where my my singer is. Okay, so now I want to light this guy with a global lighting. So let's take a look at the properties here. So if you look at the property that looks like a little planet Earth, all right, you can actually enable this to turn on the lighting effect. So we are going to enable something called environment lighting. So let's turn that on for now. And we are just going to use just pure white light. So basically the environment will be pure white and it's going to come in from all directions. So in order to see this effect, you will have to go and render it. Okay, because right now you see if I go to texture or material, I can't really see the effect of how the light is being lighting this this model here. So let me switch over to my camera view, and then I'm going to press F12, and then I'm going to render it. So the effect is quite dramatic. You can see the soft effect and the what we call the almost like the ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion happens when you have two edges, right, or two faces which are very close to one another, and it generates this very soft, very nice dark contrasty area. Okay, so this will give it a far more realistic effect. Okay, especially if your object has a lot of grooves, if your 3D model has a lot of grooves, this area tends to like collect a lot of dirt or grime, and then this will actually give it a sort of a worn look. All right, so this effect is really, really nice. So if you want the light to be stronger, you just need to go to the world, the energy, and then you just bump it up. If you have a fast enough computer and a fast graphics card, you can also click on showing it rendered straight away. And as you adjust the value, okay, for example, the brightness, you can see it being rendered right before your eyes. However, this is only applicable for those of you who have a fast computer, because you see every time I change the value, the viewport will stutter a little bit, and then it will recreate the render. Okay, so another thing that you can enable to increase the realism is this thing called ambient occlusion. Okay, so ambient occlusion is like what I mentioned. If you have two edges that are very close to each other, the contrast in these areas is going to be bigger. So if I turn on this ambient occlusion, okay, it should make this effect even stronger. So you can adjust by adjusting the factor here. Okay, you can change the settings to see what it does. So I'm changing this to multiply, and then I'm going to enable and disable and see what is the effect like. Okay, the effect is very, very subtle. All right, so if you want, you can change the values here, and then you see how it affects your render. Okay, so another lighting effect which you can turn on is called indirect lighting. So if you turn on indirect lighting, okay, this will actually simulate like if the lights bounce with on the surface, it will bounce back again. However, right now it says on this note, it only works with the approximate gather method. Right now I'm in ray trace mode, okay, and if I want this indirect lighting to work, I have to switch to approximate, so which I'm going to turn on right now. And now you can see the effect is very, very dramatic now. I'm going to turn the ambient occlusion factor, just adjust it up a little bit, so it's not so crunch. In fact, I'm just going to turn off ambient occlusion because right now it's a little bit too much. Okay, and then the environment lighting, I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so you can adjust all these values, all right, in order to get the effect that you want. Okay, and the effect seems to work only when you are looking through the camera. Okay, so if I were to turn on the sky right now, like if I turn on a blend sky and I change the horizon color, that is going to affect how the whole thing or how the light source is going to work as well. So by just choosing to the sky texture, so right now the sky is actually producing the light. So if I change the color of the sky to maybe a warm orange, okay, so right now the sky, like if you want to produce a sort of like a sunset, okay, this is maybe on another atmosphere, on another planet. Okay, so you can use, like you want to create a Martian environment, so you can use this environment, right, to create all these very nice lighting effects. So The thing is, some of you might ask, if I have all these world lighting effects, then what's the use of the other lights? Well, you can actually use lights. You can still use the other lights in this environment. Okay, let me just show you by just creating one point light. And I'm just going to move this light. Okay, right now the light is, okay, let me just find. Let me just add another light here. And position it over here. And then I'm going to turn on ray trace shadow. And I'm going back to my camera view again, and I'm going to turn on the rendered view so I don't have to hit render all the time. So you can see the new light that I've created can still be used in the environment here. So although the environment is producing a lot of light, okay, you can still add in lamps to enhance or light out certain portions of the environment. Okay, so you can see the lighting features in Blender is actually pretty powerful and pretty flexible. Okay, you can actually do a lot of things with it. Okay, ambient color, usually I'll leave it as black. Okay, so things like paper sky or blend sky. So let's say if you want to use a actual photographic environment to light the scene, you can actually do that too. Okay, so I've downloaded an image from the internet, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so this image, right, is a HDR or a high dynamic range image that wraps around, that you use to texture map around the environment of Blender so that you can use it as a light source. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to set it up right now. So in order to bring in that image, first I need to go to the texture tab here. Then I need to click on new and make sure that you're in the global properties, or rather the world properties, and then click on new. Okay, and then I'm going to open up the texture, which I already placed on my desktop. Okay, so this will be used as my environment. Okay, and then I'm going to try to enable the paper sky. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I'm going to have to refer to my settings again, because right now I'm supposed to bring in this image from the texture side and then use that to light the environment. Okay, I'm going to have that settings here now. So once I have it, okay, you should be able to see it. Okay, let me see. I got one texture here. This guy, no, use that. Okay. Okay, maybe I have to set it here first. Okay, this one always gets me. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll return to this later. So once I research this, then I will show you guys again. But meanwhile, you guys can try, if you can, just set up an object and then light it up using the 3-point lighting method. Okay. Okay, right now I'll just try to figure out how to bring this texture into the environment. There you go. I'm beginning to see the image here. Let's see. the mapping for this is wrong, so I need to change this. It should be image mapping. This one should not be angular sphere. No, angular. Ah, there you go. Okay, yes. Oh, you are supposed to see the stream if you can. Please click on this and watch this one instead. Okay, watch the YouTube live stream. Okay, you'll get a much better response on the YouTube live stream because from my experience with Collaborate, I'm unable to stream the live demonstration very well. So anyway, the entire session is recorded, so you guys can review it again later on. Okay, I just had to figure out how to get this to work. I think it's horizon, and then let's see, is this the real sky? Yes. Okay. So I've set it up already, I think, and I'm just going to use sky texture. I'm still getting this color from. Let me just go to white, then sky color, sky texture. Okay, still not getting it. Maybe I change this to a. Okay. Maybe I'll try another different map. Maybe this is a cube. Nope. Cube rectangular. Nope. Okay, angular map is the one that is as close to the effect that I want. Okay, wait. Okay, so it's global. All right, so it's the global settings. So right now, the global is being mapped around the sky. And I just want to make sure it's actually producing the image here. It's actually lighting the environment. Let me just change the view a little bit. Okay, paper sky is not working for me. It should be the real sky. Yeah. So right now, if I change, hopefully if I change it, it shouldn't affect. No, this is not correct. Okay. Sky color. If I change this, should not. Right, I still can't get the proper effect that I want. So what, okay, I'm trying to explain to you guys what I'm doing right now. I've got this environmental image, which is supposed to wrap around this world. And right now I've got a problem of trying to get it to be used as an environmental lighting source. So by right, if I change this color, right, it should not affect the environment because the light source should be coming from the image itself. So this can be a little bit annoying to set up. Okay, let me just try to change it. Different mapping again. Okay, this one doesn't work. This is obviously wrong. Object's pretty close. I think global is still the best bet. And okay. So just might change, increase the energy. Okay, somehow changing this horizon map still affects. Okay, let's see. I'm going to get rid of the light which I've created earlier. Just get rid of this light. So now all the light sources is only coming from the environment. Okay, so even if I turn on this indirect lighting, which I have to turn on approximate, and increase the number of passes. Okay, so all these gather in indirect lighting. What it does is that it tries to simulate the real behavior of light when it hits the surface and then it bounces back. And you can see a little bit of the light is actually bouncing back onto the surface of the model. Okay, let me just change this to sky texture, see whether it helps a bit. No. Okay, so this indirect lighting is not really helping me much. Let me just increase the bounce. Okay, it's not really helping me much. So I'm going to turn off indirect lighting. And I'm going to switch back to ray trace again. All right, so there's some issue here. The light is actually projected down from vertically, which is not supposed to be the case. Let me just try to see what I can change the. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my previous project which I worked on, and I'm going to see whether I can reverse engineer my previous setup. Because sometimes when the project gets too complicated, okay, you'll be very, very tough to find out what is the right setting. So I believe I set up the lighting in this scene here. Okay, it's going to take a while because I had to wait for my hard drive to spin up. Okay, meanwhile, you guys can think of if you have any questions, any difficulties that you faced doing your assignment so far, please write them down and then send them to me. Okay, so actually it's already loaded. So this is the one which I've set up. Okay, so I set it up as a HDR. I'm going to okay, so this one is a little bit different. This one I set it up as a cycles rendered environment. So the previous example which I showed you, I can't really compare this because this was done using cycles. So if it is cycles, this is actually what it looks like. So there is no lights being used in this scene. The lighting is actually done entirely using the environment map, environment texture map. Something is it's called a high dynamic range map. And then if I change the view, you can see that, okay, that there's a light source that's coming in here. Okay, and then lighting the subject here. So in this case here, I don't even need to use any light sources at all. So all my lights are, the lights actually rendered, or rather produced from the image texture itself. Okay, I see a question. Can I submit? Yes, you can submit three. Yes, you can submit three separate Blender files. All right. So again, provided if you can try to keep the file size small, and as long as you zip it up, you should be fine. Okay. So I have no problems with that. So, but in order to, if you, those of you who feel that, oh, there's too many files, you want to append all of them together, make sure that when you append them together, you separate the three different stages of modeling so that I can review and see that you are actually doing the modeling work. Okay. So anyway, since we're coming to the the cycles part of the render, okay, we are going to go for a short break now. Right now, my time here is 8:17. Okay, let's go for a, let's see, 17. Okay, let's go for a 15-minute break, and we'll come back at around 3:30, 32. Sorry, 8:32. Okay, good question. Okay, before I go for break, let me just address that. So basically, it means, okay, this is your rendered image. Okay, let's say I render this image right now, and I got one image at this angle. All right, so I have one image at this at this particular angle. And then next, you need to change your view, and then you render it at a different angle. So once you finish rendering this, we'll just wait for this to finish render first. Okay, so once you finish once you finish rendering an image, right, you just press the function 3 key or F3, or you can click on image, save as image. So the shortcut key is F3, and then you can save it as an image. I'm going to save it on the desktop. Okay, and then next, you change your view. Okay, change it to another view. Let's say maybe I change it to this view. And then I just press F12 to render again. So once this image is rendered, you just save it, and that is your second view. So this is what I meant by that. You can attach the images. You can insert the images and into the zip file, together with everything, and then just attach it onto the Word document. Yes, exactly. Yes, correct. So three Blender files work in progress, and then actually you can put two work in progress and the final file, and then plus two render images. So for example, now I have two images of the object that you just rendered, and then you can save this. So press F3 to save, and then you can save it as, okay, this one is Dragon Bracelet 2, and save. Okay, and then that's it. All right, so now it's 8:21. So let's go for a break now. So 8:21, so 15 minutes. Okay, we'll come back at 8:36. All right. Okay, so I'm going to type a big message here. And meanwhile, I'll just play a video. Okay, this is a latest video that I've been watching, okay, on 3D modeling. So okay, so I'm going to mute the microphone. So is bothering me. Okay, so I just turn on the microphone for the live stream. So the environmental lighting for Blender is bothering me a little bit. So I'm just going to try to set it up again just to figure out what went wrong earlier on. Okay, just going to stop sharing that. Just going to share the Okay, so I'm just going to share this Blender all along here. All right, so I'm going to set this up again. So I'm just going to enable the environmental lighting, and I'm just going to use the sky texture. Horizon, I'm just going to bring it back down. And just going to bring in that image. Okay, everything looks good here. So I should turn to the horizon. Okay, I do not want this to be the color source. I'm going to turn that off. And let's take a look at, okay, just get rid of this light. I'm just going to use the environment as a lighting source. So it will appear that the sky texture isn't really generating the light here. So the effect that I'm getting here is not really that realistic. So which brings me to okay, which brings me to using the cycles renderer. So let me just give you a quick intro of the cycles renderer. So currently in the first half of tonight's lesson, we've been using the Blender renderer. Okay. So can you guys hear me now? You all should be able to hear me. I already unmuted the microphone. So check. Yes. Okay. So all along we've been using the Blender render engine, which has been around for as long as for as long as Blender has been around. So besides the Blender renderer, there's other types of renderer as well. There's a Blender game renderer. Then there is of course the cycles renderer, and also Blender has the capability of using other types of third-party renderers as well for different types of builds. So, but the most exciting renderer right now, in fact, the renderer that most people are using right now is the cycles renderer. So what's so special about the cycles renderer? So let me just start off from a new scene. And we are just going to create a bunch of objects here. And I'm going to just put this cube here, put a monkey head. Okay, maybe a twisted torus. This will create some nice effects later on. I'm just going to smooth it and maybe create a monkey head. Okay, so by default, we are going to see this scene. If you go to the camera, and if you're going to press F12, okay, so this is what the Blender renderer looks like, the default Blender renderer looks like, and then with the default single light source. And obviously, everything is not looking as good as it should be. So if we try to use the, I'm going to subdivide this, press Control 3, maybe this one, 2. This one, maybe not so much. I'm not going to subdivide that cube. And I'm going to reposition my camera, Control, Alt, number pad 0. And then just select the camera by clicking on the edge and then press GG to pull up twice. Roll out the mouse to zoom in. And just going to re-render again. So this is what the Blender renderer looks like. So right now, if I were to change this into the cycles renderer instead, and I'm going to preview this by clicking on the rendered. And you can actually see the effect and the quality has improved tremendously. Although the objects doesn't have any materials assigned to it yet, but the way that it handles the lighting is far more realistic than what the Blender rendering engine is capable of. So right now I'm just going to move this until it touches the floor. Okay, and instead of using my CPU to render, okay, again, this is only applicable for people who has a fast graphics card at home. So I'm going to change my rendering device under the renderer here. I'm going to change my rendering device from CPU to GPU compute. Okay, so this will speed up my rendering tremendously. And the light source that I have, I can right mouse click and select this light. Can go over to the light properties here, and you can enable this button called use nodes. When this use nodes is done or enabled, it will allow it to function in the cycles renderer in Blender. So let's go back to the camera view by pressing 0, and then I'm going to switch to rendered view. And you see the rendering is way much faster. And also, if I were to adjust the values now, for example, the strength of the light, I can increase the intensity of the light. Okay, maybe put it at 500. Because this is a point light, we really need to jack up the strength of the colors, or really need to jack up the strength of the lighting source in order for it to illuminate the object that we see here. But you can see with very minimal effort, we can actually create a very realistic lighting environment. And just from a single light source, it actually replicates what the light look and feel like, almost like in the real world. You can see the shadows are softer as it gets closer to the edge, and it's able to generate the reflected light effect. For example, the light, if you can see closely at this monkey head here, the light actually hits the surrounding areas and it actually bounces back and it's reflected back at this cheek area here. So in the past, this type of rendering feature takes a long time to render, and it needs a very powerful graphics processor in order to achieve this kind of effect. And I remember probably 10 years ago, 10 or more than 10 years ago, right? This kind of hardware will cost serious money just to create this kind of almost real-time effect. But you can see the effect that Cycles is capable of doing. And this is only the lighting department. So wait till you see what you can do with the materials. So the good thing about Cycles is that you can just rotate and change your view, and the samples will just cycle, keep on cycling until it reaches the limit that you set, and so that you can have a rough preview of what the whole thing looks like. Okay. So you can see even behind the shadow here, the shadow is not like the super dark shadow we see earlier on in the Blender renderer. And it has this very nice soft effect. And like I said, the surrounding areas, right, actually reflects or bounces the energy back to the back of the object here. So the Blender Cycles render engine started off as a experimental renderer. Now it has matured to a state that this is now a very powerful rendering system. Okay, if you actually go and Google on images that is rendered using the Cycles engine, you'll be surprised at the quality that you can get from it. And at the same time, is relatively easy to set up quickly to get a very realistic effect. Okay, so right now we have this, what do you call it? The lamp as a lighting source. But because the lamp is just a tiny dot, so we need we need to really jack it up in the strength in order to produce some decent light. So I'm going to get rid of this lamp. And instead, I'm going to use an object to become a source of illumination. So in this case, I'm going to use another plane object. So I'm going to select the bottom plane. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. And then I'm going to use this entire piece as my lighting source. Okay, so I'm going to just scale it slightly. So right now, I'm going to make this entire piece here to produce light to actually transmit downwards. So I'm going to right mouse click to select it. Then you go to the materials properties and click on new. And take note that when you are in Cycles, in the Cycles renderer mode, whatever materials you create will only work in Cycles. If you were to switch back to the Blender render, all your Cycles material will stop functioning and you become this blank material here. So in order for it to work, you must always work in the Cycles renderer. All right. So right now we created it as a basic diffuse material surface, but however, we want this piece to actually produce light so that the bottom objects can be seen. So currently, if I were to go to the camera view, and we already deleted our only light source, if I switch over to the rendered view, okay, I expect to see nothing much. All right, the only thing that is actually lighting it up right now is the environment. Okay, the environment is producing a very faint amount of light. Okay, that is lighting this here. So again, you go to the environment, you can activate it by clicking on use nodes. Okay, and right now there's a strength of 1, and if you do not want any lights at all, you can just bring it down to 0. So right now the environment is not producing any light at all. So that's why you see it is completely dark. So I'm going back to my solid view. And now, like I said, I'm going to make this top piece here to become a source of light. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to click on the material. And instead of a diffuse material, I'm going to click on this dot here. And I'm going to change it into an emission material. So when you change it into emission material, it automatically becomes a light source. So if I switch over to my rendered source right now, you can see that now I'm producing this light. This whole area itself is producing light. It's almost like a light source that's coming from a row of fluorescent light. Okay, so if I feel the light is not strong enough, I can go to the strength here, just left mouse click and drag to the right to produce an even stronger light. And if you can see, because of the area of the light, okay, for those of you who study photography, the bigger the size of the area of the light, the softer the shadows will be. So if you want the light to produce a hard shadow, then the light source must be smaller. So let's try that and see whether it works. So you can actually select object while in this rendered mode. So I'm going to select this top light here, and then I'm going to press S to scale it down. So of course, when you scale it down, the light becomes less. So now you can hardly see the objects here. That means we really have to bump up the strength. You have to be very aggressive to bump up the strength to maybe like 500, okay? Or even 1000. But you can see, because of this small intense light source, we are now producing a very nice, realistic, and harder edge shadows. And that's the beauty about Cycles. It doesn't require you to go to the lights and adjust and tweak with the settings. In order to get the shadow effect that you want, all you need to do is just to create a light source and then just change the scale. And you can see the amount of settings is very minimal. So this is one thing which I really like about the Blender, the Cycles engine. And like I said, all the earlier effects like this light bouncing off from the other surface and reflecting off the cheek is actually done for you for free. Okay, you do not need to set up any complex final gather settings or ambient occlusion settings. Okay, although sometimes turning those things on might improve the render a little bit. Okay, but as it is, okay, this is actually a very, very good render, in my opinion. Okay, so that's lights alone. Okay, so again, you can also create 3 pieces of these this small emitter and then arrange them in such a way that they behave like 3-point lighting. All right, so you can change the color. So the same things, and it will just render for you on the fly. Okay, so for those of you who are not sure how you can increase the speed of your renderer. Okay, again, I have to emphasize, this is only for people who are using desktops equipped with a dedicated graphics card. For example, I own a GTX, NVIDIA GTX graphics card. So if you want your render to be faster, you have to make sure you go to your preferences, click on File, User Preferences, and then go under the System tab, and scroll down to your lower left, and then look for the Cycles Compute Device option. Now, by default, it should be none. Okay, if you're using a Intel graphics equipped laptop, okay, there should be none. However, if you have a NVIDIA graphics card, you should be able to see this option called CUDA. So click on it to enable CUDA, and it should automatically detect the graphics card that is installed on your system. Now, in order to let the GPU, that means your computer graphics card, to process the render in the viewport, you have to activate to GPU compute. In fact, when you switch over to GPU compute, whatever you render through Cycles, right, your graphics cards will be doing the rendering. Okay, the CPU will be helping just a little bit. All right. So remember to set this if you have the graphics card installed, and if you own a gaming laptop, you should be able to switch over to a gaming laptop that is equipped with, again, NVIDIA graphics card. I'm not sure about ATI. Okay, I'm not sure whether ATI graphics cards are supported or not. But as far as I know, NVIDIA graphics cards are definitely supported. So if you own those GTX series from 500 and above to the latest ones, you should be able to turn this on, and the rendering speeds are tremendous, are far faster than what is being capable on, let's say, a laptop that's just equipped with the Intel graphics card. Okay, so once you get that done, you can actually speed up your render tremendously, and then the interactivity will also be much faster. Okay, so right now, let me just select that light source again. You can just right mouse click on this, and if you go to the material, I'm going to just change this back to the white or near white color. Okay, again. And now I'm just going to assign a couple of materials to these objects that I have created. Okay, I'm going to start off with this this cube here, and then I'm just going to click on Use Nodes to enable it. So you can change different types of materials here. So they are known as shaders. Okay, so you can actually experiment and then go ahead and then try to see what kind of effect it gives you for the for what kind of effect it actually acts on the cube. So I'm just going to try, let's say, okay, let me just use the default diffuse and just change it to a different color. Okay, and then for this torus, now if you can't see what you're selecting, you can always press Z to change Z a couple of times so that you can see what you're selecting. And then I'm going to click on New to assign it a new material. So for this one, I'm going to add a glossy material instead. And then for the monkey head, I'm going to use a glass material instead. Okay, the default settings of these materials by themselves are already pretty good. So in order to view the effect, all you have to do is just switch to the rendered view, and then you can see the effect straight away. So right now we have this very glossy donut, and then we have this diffused cube, and then we have this glass monkey head. And also, if I change my view, okay, you can see the renderings, okay, the refractions of the light, right, that's being calculated real time. Okay, so even the caustics are being attempted to render. Okay, so but you begin to see that whenever the light source is a very small and harsh light, you begin to see the rendering quality start to falter a little bit. So these things that you are seeing right now is very, very common in Blender. We call them the fireflies. So in order to get rid of these annoying dots, right? In the past, people actually Photoshop them out, but that is actually not very efficient. So what you can do is you can go to the renderer settings, which is represented by this camera icon. And then if you scroll it down, there is this sampling. And then under the samplings, right, you can see this clamp direct and clamp indirect. Okay, you can actually increase the clamp indirect just a little bit, not too much, because if you give it too much, it's going to kill the quality of the render. So I'm just going to give it a very small value, maybe 0.01, and then press enter. Okay, again, it still doesn't look very good. So I'm just going to bring 0.005. Okay, I really need to bring this value a bit higher. Just bring it to 0 again. 0.1. Okay, so it sort of fixed the fireflies issues. So you need to just play with these clamp values in order to get rid of those dots. Another way to really get rid of this will be to increase the size of the light source. But then by doing that, you get rid of the soft shadow effect. So I'm just going to scale this a little bit bigger. And because right now my light source is so huge, it's washing out everything here. So I'm going to go into the material of the emission, and then I'm going to bring it down to maybe 10. And it's still too big, maybe 2. Okay. And then the clamp values of the renderer, I'm going to switch it back to 0 again. And then I'm getting back the effect that I like. Okay, so although we lost the shadows now, but at least the quality of the render right now is much better. Now, if you want the quality of the render to increase even more, or to actually let the software cycle further in order to refine the render, you need to increase your rendering samples. Right now, the default samples in the preview window is set at 32 samples. So I'm going to increase it to match the render samples at 128. So right now, render is going to continue to render over and over again until it reaches 128. And you can see the quality is going to improve. The roughness, the noise is slowly going to disappear as each pass will refine the image over and over again. And you end up with an image that truly looks very, very nice. Okay. So I'll highly recommend that you guys try out using cycles to from today onwards to actually add material to your assignments and objects. And you can see that it is so easy to set up, right? And the properties of the materials are also very easy to change. For example, for this glass material, let's say for some reason I want to have a red glass or green glass. So you can just click on the color and then just change it slightly. So right now you have red glass. And if you want gold material, let's say you want to change this silver donut here, you want to change it into a golden donut, you just need to click on the color swatch and change it to a warm yellow gold color. So now you have a glossy piece of gold and a crystal glass monkey head. Okay. Now, of course, if you want the environment to reflect around it, because right now I've turned off the environment light, so everything is completely dark. If you want to bring in an environment to actually illuminate or give it some nice reflections, we can go and bring in that studio image again that I downloaded. So to download those type of image, right, those images are known as HDR, okay, high dynamic range images, okay, environment maps. So right now I brought it in, but I have not activated it in the world yet. So I need to, under the color, Okay, I need to change it to image texture, or you can use environment texture. And then we are going to load in the image. And I'm going to change the mapping method. Oh yeah, I'm going to leave it as before. Right now, because my strength is 0, that's why I'm not seeing it. So I'm just going to increase the strength a little bit. There you go. So right now you can see the environment is actually helping to light up the scene. So I'm going to experiment. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this top plane now. Okay, let me go to wireframe. I'm going to get rid of this illumination plane. Or actually, let me just hide it by pressing M and putting it in another layer. So Shift Z will bring back, Shift Z, right, will bring back the rendered environment view again. So right now, what we are seeing here, there are no lights at all that is lighting the scene. The lighting source is actually coming from the environment here. Okay, so the environment image which I brought in. Okay, I have a question. Can we have glass material for our teammate? Yeah, you can use any material you want, you know. For example, the aircraft cockpit, okay, is made out of glass, so you can actually put glass on it. But you have to be very careful. You have to make sure you don't apply glass all over to the final assignment, okay? But for your ECA, you definitely need to use the glass material. And as you can see, creating the glass material is very, very simple. Okay, so you can see the environment is very easy to set up. All I need to do is just go to the world, and then I just need to change the texture, the color into environment texture, and bring in this special image here. And if it's not bright enough, not strong enough, I can just bump up the brightness. Okay, so all these white areas, right, will suddenly become the light source. Okay, so I think the 3 is looking pretty good. Okay, so you can see the numbers is gradually going up higher and higher and higher until eventually it will reach 128. So once it reaches the end, it will stop rendering. Now, of course, if you want the quality to be even better, you can set the render samples to be even higher, so the quality will look much, much better. Okay, so how would you like, let's say you want to put a material, a texture onto, let's say this block here. For example, let's say I want to transform this cube into a piece of wood. So I already brought in the wooden texture, which I downloaded earlier. So I'm just going to show you quickly how to do that. So first, I'm going to press Z to go to wireframe first. Then press S followed by Z to flatten this. And then I'm just going to press S followed by X to lengthen it so that it looks like a plank of wood. And remember last week you all did your UV unwrap. So I'm going to UV unwrap I'm going to UV unwrap the this plank here. So I'm going to change this into the UV image editor. Okay, select the wood, the piece of the plank here. I'm going to freeze the scale. So press Ctrl A, and I'm going to freeze the scale. Then I'm going to press Tab to go to edit mode, and I'm going to go to. Okay, first I need to unwrap this first. So I need to go to select the edge to cut the edges first. So I'm going to cut maybe here, here, and here, so that it will open up nicely. And maybe this one. Okay, and then I'm press Ctrl E, and then I'm going to mark the seam. Okay, and then I'm going to press A to select all the faces. And then I'm going to press U to unwrap. So I should be able to see the unwrap. So right now I saw the image that is unwrapped already, or rather the plank that's unwrapped. I need to bring in the wooden texture so that I can texture it onto here. So meanwhile, I'm going to just generate a new image. I'm going to create actually no, I don't have to generate a new image. Okay, right over here, if you press N under the texture editor here, there's an option to allow you to turn on the a temporary UV material. Let me see, where is it? Let's see. Okay, maybe I do have to create it after all. I don't see the images here. Okay, so I have to create the image, right? So when click image, new, I'm gonna create a UV grid. Okay, I'm gonna call this UV grid. Then okay, create it. So right now the UV grid is created. Then now I can see the color grid and UV grid suddenly appears. So I can switch between these two. And then over here, I can click on texture, rather material. I'm gonna switch to texture mode. Okay, this is odd. The material is not appearing here. Okay, maybe this could be a cycles issue, but let's switch over to temporarily switch to Blender renderer and see whether I can bring back the texture. Huh. That is interesting. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to cycles renderer. Okay, no problem. I can just press render to see whether I have the texture rendered there. No, oh, this is interesting. Okay, anyway, I have this block that is UV unwrapped. So right now I need to bring in the texture of the wood. So I have to go to the texture and I have to switch over to material first. Okay, on the material itself, on the surface, I need to change the color type. I need to change it into image texture. Okay, so right now, because I haven't brought in any image, it's going to show this kind of pink color. So I'm just going to click on open and then locate that material, a piece of wood material that I've downloaded. And this is a very, very high resolution material. And you can see the material straight away appears on the wood and actually looks pretty good. Okay, so if you know how to UV unwrap, okay, and then place the wood, right? Okay, right now this is just a simple wood texture that is slapped on top of the surface. There is no bumpiness. There is no like sort of like uneven texture on it. All right, so it's just a photograph that is being stuck on the surface. But when you have the texture that is being placed on what do you call that, on the surface itself, when you have a texture, it's going to dramatically improve the look of your renders. Okay, so if I go back to the render again, you can see, okay, having a photographic texture on the 3D model itself can greatly enhance the look of your model. Okay. So this is only one of the things that, one of the many things that Blender is capable of doing. And I guess that's pretty much it for today's texturing and lighting. Okay, so if you have any questions that you want to ask me or any demonstrations that you want me to show, okay, I'm more than happy to demonstrate to you guys. Okay, meanwhile, you guys, right, if you can follow along or if you can open up your Blender, okay, I know it's a bit hard, all right, there's a limited desktop screen available. So those of you who are in the school labs, you can have 2 computers open, then you can practice and then you can watch and listen to this at the same time. Okay, there's one thing that which I've not really shown you guys, that is how do you apply a bump. Okay, how do you apply a bump map onto the surface? For example, how do I make this piece of wood look even more realistic? Okay, that is, you can actually create a bump map from the original image. Okay, so let me just minimize this. And I'm going to show you how I convert this image. So right now we have this image here, which is this giant piece of wood. Okay, and I'm going to convert it into a bump map. So I'm going to open it up with GIMP again. Most of you have Photoshop, you can also use Photoshop. The steps are pretty much the same. So I'm going to drag and drop it into GIMP and then open up this image. So in order to make this into a bump map, first I need to discard the color information. Okay, I need to get rid of the saturation so that it becomes a black and white image. And then I'm going to use the colored tool again, and then I'm going to go to the curves and really bump up the contrast. Okay, so the difference between the dark and black, right, can be seen. Okay, so I'm just going to click OK. Then I'm going to save this as a bump, so I'm going to click on Save As, and I'm going to save on the desktop. Okay, I can't save as in GIMP. I can only export as. So I'm going to export it as a PNG, and I'm going to call it wood bump PNG, and then save. Export. So because this is a big image, so it's going to take a bit of time to export. Okay, I'm curious. Have you guys? Are you guys able to see what you're supposed to do for your ECA yet? Is anyone able to see the ECA questions yet? Okay, so good. All right. So the items in the ECA might look easy to model, okay, but there are some things which are a little bit tough. So if you are not sure how to model the certain items, now is the best time to ask me. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to just right mouse click and then select this piece of wood first. And then I'm going to apply a bump material. So I'm just going to back to the diffuse material here. So the bump is available under this normal here. Now cycles, right, works in something called nodes. All right, so we need to go to this thing called the node editor, right? And then we can see this is what the material looks like. Right, there's an image coming in and it is affecting the color, and then the output will show in the final output, the final result. So in order to change the bumpiness, we need to bring in another image that affects the normal. Okay, so of course you can click on the dot here and then you can click on image. Okay, but sometimes you can't find the image here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an image and then connect it to this normal here. So I'm going to press Shift A, and put input, and then I'm going to put in, under texture, image texture. Okay, and then I'm going to open, and this time I'm going to pick up that wood bump map that I've just created. And then I'm just going to grab the color, and then I'm just going to connect it to the normal. So if I view the render right now, I should be able to see that there is some roughness going on the wood texture. Okay, and then sure enough, now the wood appears to be rougher. Now, if you don't see the roughness, okay, I can just disconnect the normal. Okay, by just grabbing it and release, and now you can see it is smoother. Okay, and then if I reconnect it again, okay, it's slightly rougher. And then right now the roughness is 0. I can just adjust the value. Okay, the roughness doesn't really change much. Let me just check the amount. Okay, so actually I have to bring in another node, all right, to adjust the amount. So right now to adjust the amount of bumpiness, I will have to adjust the contrast again within GIMP. Okay, so let me see whether I can get rid of this. Disconnect this again. Go over here and then I'll see. Okay, put in a bump. Yeah. So put in a bump in between so that I can adjust the strength, and then connect the color to the, no, not the strength here. I would say connect it to the normal, and then I'll increase the strength or reduce the strength. Okay, not much is going on here. Let me see. Okay, there is some effect here. So once I connect it, you can see the contrast of the bump is a bit more. All right. So you can actually create the bumpiness on this. All right. Can anyone tell me what are the 5 items you need to model for your ECA? And what are the items you think is the most difficult to model? Anyone? I can give you some modeling hints right now. So you just need to tell me which one do you think. So which one do you think is the hardest? Anyone? The French press. Very good. So I'm expecting that answer. All right. So I'm going to give you a tip right now. Now, creating the container, the glass container shouldn't be too difficult. And but creating the okay, yes, everything is difficult. No, actually, the everything else is pretty straightforward. Okay, as long as I'll just give you some guides, and then the rest you just go and figure it out. Yeah. So I'm going to just reset this right now. We'll start with, let's say, okay, we start with something that's easy first. Okay, the toast. The toaster. All right, so I'm not going to transform this cube into a toaster. So first, Control R. Okay, go to edit mode, Control R, and then click on the center and right mouse click so that you select half of this. Then I'm going to select this half. Okay, click on this show the buffer, limit selection to visible button, and then just press V to select half of these faces, and then press X to delete away the faces. And then enable the mirror modifier, which is here. All right. And then press A to select all, press S to scale along the y-axis until it's more or less like a box like this. Select the faces on top here, press I to inset. And then you can just push this back a little bit and press E to extrude inwards. All right, so you can see your toaster shape is coming out very, very easily. You can go over and select the edge here, and select the edge here, and shift, but not shift right mouse click, that is my, so we have to bevel this, so Control E, and then choose bevel. And then you can bevel the edges. And you can also increase the segments, so it becomes rounder. Okay, but actually this is not the most perfect effect that I want. So let me just undo that. Okay, that's actually not a very good example. In order to make this side look rounder, I'm going to press Control R and insert one edge loop right about here. Okay, and in order to make my mirror more efficient, I just want to do 1/4 of this toaster. Press B, box select these faces and delete them away. And then I'm going to enable my mirror in the y-axis, yes. So right now I only need to work on 1/4 of my toaster. Okay, I'm going to switch over to the vertex mode, select this vertex, then press Shift S and put cursor to selected. So the cursor is here. And then I'm going to use a tool called the spin tool. Okay, I'm going to grab these, this face, this edge here. And then I'm going to spin it down. So I'm going to select these two edges here. And then I'm going to go to the side view, orthographic view. Okay, pressing 5 to go orthographic view. And then I'm going to use this thing called the spin tool. All right, so in order for this spin tool to work, you need to change the rotational axis to 3D cursor. And then we're going to hit spin. Okay, now the spin is spinning this direction, which is not what we want. We want it to spin minus 90 degrees. Okay, so that you will end up with the corner looking like this. So if there are too many segments, you can reduce. I don't need so many segments. Okay, and then the internal face here, I also don't need it. Delete it away. Delete away the faces. And go over here, select the edge, and then press E to extrude. Lock in the Z axis and then bring it down. So we have rounded corners. Then we're gonna weld the vertices here. Okay, select both these vertices and then press Ctrl M. Sorry, Alt M, and then merge at the center. And then select these two opposing edges and then press F to fill it up. Now, if you have a face that is looking like that, right, one is dark and then one is gray, all you need to do is just press A to select all the faces and press Ctrl N, okay, to normalize the face. Okay. So now you can bevel these edges here if you want. And then press Ctrl E and then bevel it. So you got a much rounded corner like that. And then you can hit on the smooth, go to object mode, smooth it out. So if you smooth it out and you end up with this kind of effect, all right, you want to have the top parts looking hard. So you apply another modifier called edge split. When you apply an edge split, okay, the rounded areas that are supposed to be rounded will be round. Okay, those areas that are supposed to be hard will be hard. Okay, and then next, you want to create the slot. Now remember, the slot only appears on one side, so you might want to merge the y-axis first. Okay, but anyway, this is just an example. You can try to figure out the rest yourself. Press I to insert, do an inset. All right, and then while the face is still being selected, okay, I'm going to change my pivot point to median again. Then you just move it over here. I'm going to select this face here and then delete it. Select this face, move it close until they touch each other. Then press X again to delete away the face. So now you have a slot. Okay, to create the ejection handle. Now the ejection handle is fairly simple, so I'm not going to show you guys how to do that. So once you have done this, right, also the bottom is very simple. You can just extrude and then assign another base to it. Okay, so you can just apply and then apply the mirror. So now you have a completed main body of the toaster. Okay, and then you have this hole, right? You can select this hole. Okay, select the opposite edge and then you can just fill it up. Press F to fill it up. So you can have only one open slot to create the handle. Okay, so that is the basics for the toaster body. All right, so let's look at the frying pan and the glass lid. That one is fairly easy. I'm not going to show you guys how to do that one. Espresso cup and saucer is also very easy. I will not show you that one. Okay, the skimmer ladle. Okay, that one I expect a lot of people to have some problems with that. So for the skimmer ladle, right, you can actually create a sphere. Start off from the sphere, the UV sphere, right? And then you're going to use only the bottom part to be transformed into a UV sphere, or rather the ladle. So first I'm going to go to the front view and then go to edit mode, press A to deselect, press B, select the top faces, and delete away the faces, and then until you're left with this sphere. Okay, then select all the faces, press S followed by Z, okay, to really flatten it a little bit. Okay, so now the difficult part is like, how do you create the holes? Okay, actually there's more than one way to do that, right? So I'm going to show you that you can actually start by selecting alternate faces. Okay, this is the so-called the easier method. Okay, but it will not give you the really nice looking holes. Okay, so I'm going to maybe this one, yeah. So this is just to give you guys an idea. Okay, so we have this, and then we just simply X and delete away the faces. Now, if I press Ctrl 3 and subdivide this, okay, so we already have a hole already. I mean, you're free to do it like this. Okay, I'm not stopping you from doing it this way. Okay, but you will have something that is actually quite standard. Okay, right now there's no thickness, so we need to apply another modifier and apply a solidify. Okay, so that now it has a thickness to it. Okay, and maybe the center here, I think maybe I want another hole here. So how do I do that? I can go back to the original face here. So Control number pad plus, and then I can press E to extrude. Okay, and then I'm going to press S to extrude inwards. Okay, and then I'm going to press X to delete away the faces. So I got a center hole there. So this looks more like a decorative ladle. So once you have the solidify done, let's say I want to give it a bit more thickness. Okay, you can even give it a little bit of roundness, but I think this is good enough. Okay, so once you're happy with it, you can just apply. And then your subsurf, you can also apply. But you apply, you notice that the faces are really tremendous. So actually, let's not apply the subsurf. Let me just Control Z to undo first. And just do the faces. Okay, so again, with this, you add a subsurf modifier first, which is Control 3. Then add a mirror modifier. Sorry, not mirror modifier. What am I doing? Add a solidify. Okay, so while the modifiers are still being added, you need to select a face, a couple of faces at the edge, which you can extrude out. And because I have not applied the solidify yet, I just need to apply the solidify. Okay, I need to go to object and apply the solidify. And now I have the thickness of the faces to choose. Select these two. Okay, make sure you don't select the bottom faces. Select the two faces here and then press E to extrude a small section. Then press S followed by Y in this case. So to narrow it down, then press S followed by X, then followed by 0 just to flatten it. Then press E to extrude, then you can form the rest of the ladle body. And you can just move this up and push it back. So you have the ladle structure. Okay, press E again to extrude another section. And for the handle, right, all you need to do is just sculpt a piece of cylinder and then you just stuck it there. So remember, when you are modeling this, this is the advice I always give to my students, including my students that I teach right now at IT. You don't have to model everything as a single piece. Okay, you don't have to model everything to stick together. So if you find it very difficult, all you have to do is just model the pieces separately, and then you stick them together. So if you look around the real world, everything is made out of parts. Like if you next time you try to model a car, you do not model the car body out from a single piece. So you just model them part by part, and then you assemble them together. Okay, so that is the ladle for you. But if you want to have nicer holes, there is another method. Okay, but that one I'll leave it for you guys to figure out. And okay, the thing about the French press is the thing which I find most people will have difficulty in creating would be the wire mesh. Okay, the wire mesh that used to uh, create the filter. So I'm going to show you my approach. So you must first create a grid. So Shift A, and then you go on and create a grid. And if you go to edit mode, okay, you can see that the grid, right, has a lot of intersections. You want to subdivide this more to get an even bigger grid. Now I'm just going to scale this up. Then press W and then subdivide. Press W and then subdivide. I think this is, okay, maybe I subdivide a little bit more. Okay, and then press W and subdivide again. I think this is fine enough. Okay. So if I press A to deselect, so this, and if I go to edge mode, you can see this is the as fine as I can get it. I don't need it to be any finer. So the next thing is I want it to be a circle, but all I got is this this mesh effect. So how do I get it to become a circle? So you use a Boolean to trim until you get a circle. So we create a cylinder. Okay, wait, I made a mistake here because let me check. Am I in edit mode? Yes, I'm in edit mode. So if I create a cylinder, the cylinder is going to be part of this mesh here. So please make sure you go to object mode before you create the cylinder. And I want the cylinder to be right exactly at the same position of this plane here. So I'm going to press Shift S, and I'm gonna put cursor to selected. So now if I create the cylinder is going to be sitting right at the center where I want it to be. So press Shift A and then go ahead and create the cylinder. So if you want the sides to be smoother, you want to increase the number of vertices. I'm going to increase it to double the number, maybe 64. Okay, so now it is a much rounder circle. Okay, I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to press S followed by Shift Z so that I can scale it uniformly in the X and Y axis. So S, Shift Z again. I'm going to go to the top view, make sure that it is within this grid itself. S, Shift Z. And there we have it. Okay, so now we can do our Boolean. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to subtract. Okay, this mesh, I'm going to subtract it. Subtract this. Sorry, I'm going to trim this piece here. So I'm going to use the Boolean. So I'm going to apply it onto this mesh here. So I'm going to add a Boolean modifier. Okay, and then I'm going to choose the cylinder. Okay, so this is intersection. So if I apply this, okay, let me just save this first so that if I mess up, I can come back again. Okay, every time you do this kind of operation, it's always best to save it first. And then when you hit apply, and we're going to take out the mesh and then see whether it still has, yeah, now it has the nice circular shape. And if I go to edit, it is trimmed very nicely. This is the result that I want. But this is still not a transparent. All these are still flat. I mean, it is opaque. You know, we cannot use this as a coffee filter. So how do we fix this? Okay. So let me just test something here. Okay, this one doesn't work. So right now we need to apply another modifier. Okay, Blender has plenty of modifiers to actually convert this so that it looks like a wireframe. So while this is selected, just go and click on Add Modifier. Okay, there is this modifier tool that allows you to change everything to look like wireframe, which is naturally it is called a wireframe. So when you apply a wireframe onto it, okay, you can actually reduce the thickness of the wireframe. Let me just reduce this some. Okay, I think right now it's only applying to a small section. Let me just try that again. Okay, the reason is because I'm in edit mode. So if I go to object mode, now you can see I created the wire mesh. So this is usually one of the hardest things to create, but with this modifier, you can actually create a wire mesh very quickly. So you can adjust the thickness of the wire mesh, and you are basically done. And once you're happy with it, you can actually hit apply, and then this wire mesh will be generated for you. So I'm just going to hit apply, and right now I've created my filter. Okay, so of course the filter will come with the plunger and all that. I'm just going to quickly create a glass cylinder out of this. Okay, out of this cylinder. But if you do not want to create out of cylinder, you can use the previous methods which I've demonstrated, which is to just draw the outline and create the outline of the glass cup. Okay, so right now I'm just going to, I tell you what, I'm just going to align both of these together. Go to object mode first, select both of them. Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to use a cursor first. Shift C to bring the cursor to the center. Select the mesh, Shift S, selection to cursor. Then Shift S, selection to cursor. So right now they are both sitting on top of each other, which is what I want. So I'm going to convert the cylinder into this French press glass section here. So I'm going to delete the top face. I'm going to delete away the bottom face. Or actually, before I do that, I'm just going to press E to extrude, then press S to extrude inwards. Okay, because you can Alt right mouse click to select the edge. I'm going to go to edge mode, Control Tab, and Alt right mouse click, then press W, and then bevel. So I have the bottom bevel looking like this. Then, of course, I mean, you don't have to use a cylinder with so many sides. Again, I'm going to select the edge loop here and then just rig it up. And then now we really have the glass container already. And in order to give it some thickness, we can just apply the solidify modifier. But before we do that, we're just going to extrude another couple of edge loops. So I can just scale this out slightly, press E again to extrude, then press S to scale up slightly. So to create sort of an inverse bevel, just do it one more time, extrude, and then press S to scale slightly. Undo that. Scale up slightly and then move it up. So we created the glass container. And then we need to create the lip. So the lip where you pour the coffee out. So that you turn on using the soft selection, manipulator, okay, or the proportional editing. So you go to the top view. You go to select one of the vertices on the side here. Let's say if you want to pour the coffee out this way, then you select this portion. Then we're going to select one vertex and then we're going to move it out. And then you can adjust the range by moving your mouse wheel up or down. So we can create this lip, the pouring lip of the container. So just by pulling one vertex out and with this proportional editing on, we create this lip like that. Okay, of course, right now this container doesn't contain, or rather doesn't have any thickness to it. And also it's very segmented. So we need to apply a smooth. The faces also look a bit odd. So I'm just going to press Control N. Wait, I'm going to select all the faces, Control N. Okay, so right now it's inverted. So I'm not going to be concerned about this. Okay, I noticed an issue here. When I pull the lip up, right, because I don't have enough faces in the center here, the number of faces that's being pulled outwards is a bit too much. So this cylindrical piece is not parallel enough. So I'm going to undo my edit. Just going to Control Z to undo. Okay, I think I undo too much already. I'm just going to redo. Okay, F6, redo last. Let me see whether I can. Unfortunately, I can't redo. Oh, Shift Control Z. Okay, I'm gonna try that again. Shift Control Z. Yes. Okay, so I need to go to edit mode. Then I press Control Z. Okay, I can't do that right now. So unfortunately, I have to do everything all over again. And we're just gonna do this quickly. Okay, and then just now what did I do? I just press E, and then I press S to extrude inwards. Then I go to select the edge around here, press W bevel, and then bevel the corner so that it looks rounded. Okay, select the edge on top here, and then push them up all the way. We do not need the top face here, so we can delete over the face. Then select the open edge again. Okay. Remember, okay, Alt right mouse click along the edge here so that this edge will be selected. So press E to extrude, press right mouse click so it snaps back, and push it up again, then press E again, right mouse click so it snaps back, and then press S to scale up, then press E again, extrude, then press S again, and extrude inwards. Okay, so I need to fix this corner here. Just scale it inwards. I want it to be a rounded taper looking like this. Okay, so manage to recreate this again. So now I need to insert a bunch of edge loops along this line here. So I don't have that problem when I pull out the lip. It will affect the entire length here. So press Ctrl R and then give it a bunch of edge loops, okay, by rolling out the mouse. So right now I'm satisfied with the amount of detail. Go to vertex mode, select this vertex, turn on proportional editing, and then just move it along the y-axis. And I think this is good enough. Okay, so now this section here looks far more parallel. Okay, and then I can apply a smooth to this. Then I can finally apply a solidify. Okay, and then depends on how thick do you want this. Do you want it to be really thick or just a little bit? And then that's it. You just apply the solidify in object mode, and then you have created the cut. Okay. Now, of course, when you notice the wire mesh, if you see a French press, right, the wire mesh edge is actually tilted upwards. So we're going to do this. We're going to use the soft selection tool again. So we're going to edit mode, and we're going to choose the center portion vertices. So press B and drag a box over the central vertices, and press Control number pad plus. Usually, when I grow the selection, the selection is square in shape, so that's not the result that I want. So I'm going to undo, and I'm just going to use up only the first group of vertices. Just make sure I can select them. Okay, undo, and then I'm going to use a constant method. So now with the constant profile selected on, okay, so when we move, right, we can increase and reduce the range of influence. So I'm just going to bring this down slightly, just a little bit. Okay, so that now my wire mesh has this so-called lip that goes up around the edge here. Of course, it will cause some issues here. Okay, but so far this is the best I can get at this short notice. Anyway, this thing is, okay, right now I need to turn the soft selection off. Now I can select this entire object and then put it in. Okay, if you see that it's cutting the edge of your glass, so you need to scale it down slightly. So go and select in edit mode and then just scale it in slightly. Okay, so now you have your filter. Now for the rest of the parts, I'm going to leave it to you guys to figure out. Okay, it shouldn't be too difficult to model, especially for the foot Okay, I already shown you that you can actually use the mirror modifier to model the 4 pieces. The frying pan, the espresso cup, and the saucer, frying pan, the glass lid, those are too simple. Okay, those are easy to figure out. So I'm not going to show you guys how to. So I know the French press, these are the parts that are going to be difficult. So that's why I'm showing to you now. So if I apply this cycles rendering material, apply a glass material right now. And then this one, I'll just apply a metal material. Okay, metal material generally don't have to be glossy all the time. So I'm just gonna a normal diffuse, then a gray color. I'm gonna create a plane. And I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna use, for my global color, I'm gonna use the environment texture, which I already brought in. And right now, let's see what it looks like. Brightness. Because this glass right now is too big, so I'm just going to scale them down. Numpad +0. Okay. Zoom in the camera. Okay, so actually there's this thing here called lock camera to view. If you press N to bring up the viewport properties, there's this lock camera to view so that you don't have to always change the view and then press Control Alt number pad 0. If you click lock camera to view, now you can actually middle mouse click and drag to change the view of the camera. Right, this one, these can be assigned with a glossy material, but I do not want it to be too glossy, so I'm going to roughen it up a little bit. Same thing for this, and maybe the wire mesh. Okay, so let's render this and see what it looks like. Okay, doesn't look too bad. So we only got a glass here, we got a ladle, we got this okay, we just put it at 3. You can see the wire mesh. Okay, although it's very, very fine, but it's definitely there. You can just zoom in a bit so you can see. So for the rest of the parts will be quite straightforward. You just they are just made out of cylinders, variations of the cylinder. Okay, and then the bracing for this espresso or for the French press. Okay, the bracing for it, like I said, it should be fairly simple. Okay, we have some time left. Do you guys want me to give you a hint on how to do the bracing around the French press? Okay, let me see. There's a lot of messages. Right, do you want me to show you how to create the support around the French press? Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to just give you the hint. Okay, so remember, the legs, right, consists on 4 parts. Okay, at least for my design, it has 4 parts. So all we need to do is just to model one section and then use the mirror tool to duplicate the rest. Okay, so I'm going to actually use the cup here as to help me. So all you need to do is just use the rings, right? The face selection, select the outer. Okay, need to deactivate this slide behind. So I'm going to select this 2 rings here and then this 2 rings here of the outer. And then maybe, actually I think I should select the bottom one. It's better. And then another two, maybe around here. Okay, so all I need to do is I just press Shift D. Hello, excuse me. All right. Sorry, there was a hang just now. I had, for a moment I thought my computer crashed. So anyway, so you select the ring around here, then you press Shift D to duplicate until you have another two set of rings, and then you put them aside, and then you press P, okay, to separate the selection. So now we have two set of rings here. Now we only need 1/4 of them. So just go to object mode, select these rings, and then go to center the origin. Okay, I need to select this piece, then set origin to geometry. So right now it's at the center. So let's go to the top of this geometry. We are going to get rid of 3/4 of it. So we're going to go to faces, go to box and select this group of faces. If faces doesn't work, I'm going to use vertices. Then shift select these bunch of faces as well. Okay, and then I'm just going to make sure that I've selected the correct faces. Okay, the reason why I'm not selecting this is this option is off. Okay, turn it on. This limit selection to visible so that I can select the one behind. So one more time, press B and select the top half, then select the left quarter like so, and then I'm going to revolve around and make sure that I'm only deleting away the 3/4 of it. So press X, delete away the faces, and you end up with this piece looking like that. And I'm going to activate the mirror modifier, and I'm going to mirror the y-axis as well. So you get the piece like that. So right now, all you have to do is select the opposing edges. Okay, and bridge. Use the bridge edge loop. Select these two edges. Oops. Select these two edges and the one below. And press W, specials key, and then use the bridge edge loop tool. And you can see the support is coming out really, really nice. And then what about the bottom here? Okay, we know that it's going to fit this at the bottom here. So we are going to extrude inwards the legs. So select these two, and then, in fact, let's just make everything even. So you're just going to press E to extrude one downwards like that. And then I'm just going to start off working with this one. Inwards, and then press E to extrude inwards. Okay, then we can go to the front view and press E again to extrude downwards. Okay, press E again and then just move it out like that. So depending on the kind of design that you like, I'm just going to extrude another section here, extrude another section here, and then finally extrude another section here. Okay, let's just create a unique design like that. Okay, so rather than recreating this on this side, what I'm going to do is just delete away this face here. X to delete the faces. And then I'm going to select this section here, press B to select this section. And then I'm going to duplicate. So Shift D. And R followed by Z, rotate 90 degrees. Or I think should be R Z minus 90. Okay, and then you have to manually move this back to join the section here. Okay, there's some precision that's required. So because I don't want to go through the trouble of just re-extruding all this again, and just push this in, and we have to stitch or weld the vertices to here again. Okay, and then press W, remove doubles. Okay, if it doesn't remove, you can increase the range until they stick together. Okay, this one should work right now. So we have this, the bottom of the bracing created. Okay, of course here, I think we need to spread them out a little bit. They're touching each other. I'm gonna select all this group here, and press S, and then Shift Z. Okay, Shift Z doesn't seem to work. Okay, I'm gonna try selecting only this group here. Okay, I guess I push it too far away here. Okay, I'm going to turn on this proportional editing to help me. I'm going to turn on connected so that when I move, right, only those connected faces will follow. Unfortunately, this group is following also. Okay. Anyway, I have to manually choose the faces and move them out of the way. So let's see. These two faces, yeah. Then disable this and manually pull this apart. Do the same for this one. Manually pull it apart. Okay, so that now the feed has been created. You can subdivide this by pressing Control 2 or Control 3 so that it has this rounded look of. Okay, naturally, I wouldn't want the leg design to be like that. It will be very unstable. I'm just showing you guys what it will look like. All right, so if you subdivide by pressing or adding a subdivide modifier, you have to add additional edge loops, right, to really tighten up the corners here. Okay, and then just push this up. And naturally, we need to have some thickness, right? So we apply a solidify modifier. Okay, and again, thickness is entirely up to you. You want to expand outwards or inwards. I personally feel expanding outwards would be better so that it doesn't cut into the glass. And essentially, that's pretty much it. I think just now I should have deleted a little bit more, but it seems that I'm getting a very interesting looking design here. So I'm just going to ignore this, and I'm going to apply the mirror. Apply the maybe subdivision, no. And then the thickness, I'm just going to leave the subdivision modifier. And then for this piece, I'm going to apply a glossy material. The glossy material, and then I can put this to support the glass container. Okay, obviously right now my French press is way thicker than it is. Now, as for the handle and everything, you have to figure it out. All right, so I guess this piece here will stump a lot of students. Right now, if your French press is too tall, the beauty about computer graphics is that you can always rescale it. Okay. Let's take a look at it rendered. What does it look like? Z, and so this is what it looks like. So it doesn't look too bad. Okay, and if you know how, it should not take too much time to model. I would say that this part will be the most tricky part to model, and the mesh and everything. But for those of you who attend tonight's session, so good for you. So you figure out how to do this. Like I said, the cover, the handles, and the press, and then the column that sticks to the mesh, those are fairly easy to model. So I will not be showing you guys how to do that. And this is just nice. Right now is coming to 10. So, but I think I covered the more difficult areas on how to tackle your ECA. So do you guys still have any questions for the last few minutes? Okay, let me make my material look more expensive. Okay, let me make it into a gold-plated. Appraising our model, it's a good question. All right, this is a word, okay, it's not coined by me. This is coined by the exam department, so it required me to just put the word inside. So to be honest, right, I have no idea what it means as well. But I think the general meaning is just to make sure that you acquire or create the models according to the specifications, okay, according to the requirements. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that terminology. So as long as you satisfy the requirements, as in to create all the models and making sure that all the materials, the lighting, the rendering, everything is done properly, then you'll be fine. Okay, so you don't really have to worry too much about appraising. Okay, any last final questions before we end this session tonight? So hopefully I've shown you that the Cycles renderer is a far more superior renderer compared to the old Blender render engine. I mean, there are some people who still prefer to use this Blender renderer, but since Cycles came out, a lot of people have jumped onto the Cycles bandwagon. And as I've shown you, Cycles is just fantastic. I mean, the quality is looking very, very nice. So hopefully, I think all of you should be able to do well in this module, as long as you've been doing practicing consistently. Like I said, every night, if you spend about 15 minutes every night practicing, you should be able to do well. You should be able to finish this module. Yeah. So good luck for the rest of y'all, and make sure you guys hand in your assignments before the deadline. Those of you who have finished your TMA, if possible, please hand them in before the official deadline, so that there won't be a traffic jam in the server. Okay, so that's my advice for you. Okay, if there is no more further questions, I'm signing out for the night. Thank you all for attending, and those of you who are watching later on the YouTube streaming, hopefully the information presented here will help you to complete your ECA satisfactorily. Okay. Okay, good question there. Modeling process, you just write in point form. Okay, you don't have to be like super detailed. You just need to explain like what you did here, what are tools you use in Blender. Okay, the report is just for me to check to ensure that you are actually using the proper technique to create your models. Okay, is that clear, James? You just have to write down the basic steps for each of the items. Like if you want to concentrate on the more difficult part, like say, I use the wire mesh modifier just to create the mesh. Yeah, you can highlight them up. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, again, you can post them on the WhatsApp group. Okay. So if I'm available, I will answer your questions. Okay. So everyone have a pleasant evening. And we'll see each other face to face for the last session next week. All right. So good night, everyone.